This is a downtown few people know, the center city in the early morning, beginning to stir, but not yet awake. Downtown, a giant tool of steel and concrete, waiting to be used. And each day, the tool of downtown is used by thousands of people. The transition from quiet center to busy center can be abrupt, even startling. Independence Square in Charlotte, Center City for some 260,000 Charlotteans. Some say Center City for the Piedmont Carolinas, population in the millions. About 40,000 cars pass this main intersection daily. Some 35,000 shoppers ply the stores, and figures show they may spend as much as $163 million a year in Charlotte's downtown area. Impressive figures, a picture of prosperity. But is it the whole picture? Is Charlotte's downtown on the road to growth, prosperity, success? Or is it teetering on the edge of another road, a road to decay and decline? In the midst of big city glitter, some observers note signs of tarnish. In the midst of economic boom, small signals of future danger. They say Center City has problems that must be solved, and solved now, before the clock runs out.
Time is running out. Congested streets, inadequate parking, retail vacancies. We can't wait any longer to solve these problems. It's do or die for downtown Charlotte right now.
Do or die. Strong words about a decision facing Charlotte, reflected in an upcoming bond issue. We'll examine the prospects, the problems, and the possibilities in just a moment. Few cities Charlotte's size can offer a more impressive picture of future possibilities based on performance in the growing Piedmont Crescent. Experts like economist Philip Hammer, whose firm studied Charlotte's economic role in the region, describe the city's future in glowing terms.
It's a very important economy, the heart of the whole Piedmont industrial complex, which will be by all odds the biggest industrial development area in the whole southeast. And we see therefore a regional role for Charlotte that will easily push the Mecklenburg County population to 500,000 by 1980. Which means that the trade area immediately around Charlotte will hit somewhere around 2 million population by that time.
The economic study of Charlotte, conducted by the Hammer firm in 1962, singled out the downtown area as the service center of the region.
Well, downtown Charlotte is literally the heart of the white-collar, administrative, financial control type of operation for not just for metropolitan Charlotte area, but for the entire Piedmont section. It's a very important economic function that is being played by the downtown area. But as we look off here in the next 5 or 10 years, downtown Charlotte is going to, we think, move into a different kind of a status, a higher level of economic activity, and we already have pretty good signs of this coming.
But in examining the prospects for Charlotte's downtown, the Hammer study also documented some problems that were concerning community leaders.
Though you have some very spectacular new office buildings, new developments of different types. At the same time, it's clear that the area is congested. There's a lot of vacancy in the downtown area, obsolescence around, environments are run down. It's very difficult from the standpoint of a private investor to assemble properties. The land values are high. All kinds of deterrents in the way of the normal kind of business expansion.
Anybody that gets downtown can see store after store after store that
is vacant. We've got properties all over town that used to rent for $800 a month that the property owner might have reduced his asking price to $600 a month, and nobody paid $400 a month, and it's empty. We've also got obsolete structures all over the community. You people are quite aware of these. They were built 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, and these structures have outlived their usefulness, and they are not functional. Every piece of property has a lifetime of youth and adolescence and maturity and senility, and we've got some senile properties around here, believe me.
Most of us are faced daily with the traffic problem, and I guess that's the one that affects the greatest number of people, whether they are in the downtown, the central area or not. I live about 4 miles from my office to my home. The other evening, in the middle of the late afternoon traffic jam, it took me 55 minutes to go through Charlotte and to get home. Well, that isn't typical, of course, but it shows what can happen.
Even with some obvious gains and some rather brilliant examples of new office construction particularly, and some new hotel space, retail has been badly hurt. There's been very little expansion of downtown retailing. As a matter of fact, some losses in downtown retailing, as retailers have moved closer to where consumer population is. And indeed, this is very valid from the standpoint of the metropolitan area. But from the standpoint of serving a large regional market, this decline of downtown retailing in Charlotte is quite serious. There's a very substantial amount of space that should be in a downtown area related to each other, where they can serve a regional function. And it's pretty clear that a fair amount of decentralization has taken place in metropolitan Charlotte that should have been located downtown, functions that should have been located downtown, where they could have done their jobs better, relating to each other in a very functional way. And it's this kind of capturing of that hard core of downtown functions that Charlotte, I think, really has to face up to.
If indeed downtown has problems, are they properly the concern of all citizens? Philip Hammer said downtown is vital to Charlotte, the regional city. Others point out that downtown provides a healthy quarter of the city's tax revenue, 26% last year, 23% of the county's tax take. They say an unhealthy downtown costs money. Its tax load shifts to the rest of the community. Then there is an intangible thing, image.
Downtown Charlotte contains the seat of our county and city government, our great department stores. It's the center of the financial interests of North and South Carolina. These are things that only can be contained in the heart of downtown. The number of lots that are devoted to parking lots.
On September 8, 1966, the group entrusted with developing a scheme to combat the problems of downtown set forth its recommendations. Behind the Committee for the Master Plan, 20 months of consideration and a number of favorable factors. The Intergovernmental Task Force had already labeled as a prime area for urban renewal a 12-block downtown district running westward from Davidson Street to Tryon, College Street, and the Southern Railway tracks. Already, portions of the 60-acre governmental center lying in the master plan area were nearing construction. Also previously approved, downtown street improvements to tie in with the Interloop Expressway system. On the basis of these developments, the committee called for sweeping action to renew the core and said a public investment of some $10 million over the next 5 years would spark an estimated $100 million in private investment. Increased tax revenues and other benefits would return much of the public money in a short span of time, it was said. Key points in the plan proposal were a huge downtown civic center, multi-deck parking units, a new boulevard to replace the railroad tracks between College and Brevard Streets, an open plaza at Independence Square, and in the future, planning for other facilities, a medical complex, a stadium, a zoo. These were the facts of the plan, but to get the feel of it, you have to go downtown and talk to the men who designed it. We'll do that in just a moment. To get a notion of the physical changes proposed in the master plan, we hitched a ride down East Trade Street with A.G. Odell, Jr., head of a nationally prominent architectural firm based in Charlotte, principal designer of the master plan layout. He talked first about his concept of a visual connection between the commercial heart and the governmental center.
We believe it most important to have that visual connection so that the downtown commercial center of Charlotte will be tied in directly with the governmental center of the city and the county. It'll be lined with new buildings, with a central mall connecting the city hall with a new civic center. We propose right here to have a large park with a fountain in the center. The convention center will be right across where the railroad tracks now are, which will be a new street.
We're coming up here to the square. What do you have planned for the square?
Well, we hope eventually to see Trade Street go onto Tryon Street, thereby providing a bus station underneath for the transfer and convenience of everyone using the bus. Where you see these buildings on the left, we will create a true independent square, having a new hotel, a new park with a monument to the signers of the Declaration of Independence, a new office space, new retail space.
This section in here would go under, and the Tryon Street section.
That's right. We'll go into here, and that's where Independence Square would be, right over here.
In his office, Odell told of the plans for the 4 city quadrants divided by Trade and Tryon Streets and bounded by the expressways. First, he talked about the 4th Ward section.
We propose for that a high-density residential area. We want to see established here a new park, possibly a new school, garden-type residential homes, high-rise apartments near the First Presbyterian Church.
The southwestern quadrant, basically commercial and industrial, would remain so, except for some long-range additions.
This would make an ideal place near the freeway for easy access to a new stadium for Charlotte. On this side of the thruway, and this is Irwin Creek, would be a combination zoo and botanical garden.
In the northeast, low and high-rise residential structures, public and private. In the southeast, institutional and office space, spreading out from the governmental center.
Now, within these 4 quadrants, residential, business and industrial, institutional here, in the center of it is our prime commercial development, office space, our banks, and our retail businesses. In this area, we can see running trade under Tryon, so that pedestrians can come to high-rise parking structures, whether they are privately or publicly developed, and have easy access undercover to the various offices and retail establishments in this area. We propose here the new Civic Center, new multi-deck parking here, as well as parking on this side. The Civic Center would be a focal point for our entire county, forming a link between our municipal and county governments and our heart of our retail business downtown. It would be used for many functions, educational functions, governmental functions, trade shows, conventions, all of which would bring more money, more investment, more tourists, more traffic into downtown Charlotte, which with our widened streets and adequate parking and the railroad tracks removed will form a true center of activity for our community.
This, then, is the basic design of the master plan. To get it underway, the committee asked that some $5.7 million be included in the municipal bond issue before the voters December 17th. $2.5 million would be spent for land and plans for the Civic Center and adjacent parking. $2.2 for the 12-block downtown renewal area, part of a renewal package which also includes sections of Greenville, First Ward, and Dilworth. And another $1 million would complete the widening of 5th and 6th Streets, first moves to speed the traffic flow. The committee also asked that the city look ahead to other downtown developments, completion of the Civic Center and its parking units, finishing the downtown street work, building the Independence Square Plaza, and the mall. All this by 1971. By then, the committee expects to see many dollars in private investment in the area. A new hotel, office buildings, new retail business, an estimated $50 million already in the 5-year period. The picture looks pretty, but if the master plan has its adherents, it also has its critics. Among the most vocal are merchants who would be displaced by the downtown renewal project. Jerome Levin and his father operate Lebo's Shoe Store, 124 East Trade Street. Their building has been renovated. They feel it is bad economics to tear down their store to make way for something else. Levin says private enterprise should redevelop downtown on its own.
Our country was built on private enterprise and private initiative. Home Federal is building a beautiful building up there, and this is done by private enterprise. Cresses last year spent $300,000 remodeling their building. We just went through a remodeling program. It was 3 years ago, and it cost us in the neighborhood of $200,000. Charlotte Fish and Oyster just spent $500,000 on their property. Now, this is done by private enterprise. We feel like, and we believe in downtown Charlotte. We want to remain in downtown Charlotte, as this is where we've grown, and this is where we have built our business. And if the merchants themselves or the property owners themselves want to fix up downtown, for instance, they can do it themselves because they've got the money to do it with.
But the planners say private enterprise has not done the job in downtown Charlotte.
All the improvements we've made here in Charlotte since the last war have been on the perimeter of the city, such as the auditorium of the Coliseum, the new airport, new schools, community college, university. These are peripheral advantages, but they do little to keep Charlotte, the heart of Charlotte, which is its strong heart and tax base, strong.
Charlotte Redevelopment Director Vernon Sawyer points out that the renewal approach stretches local dollars.
I think there's a definite advantage economically. As far as the city is concerned, the 2/3 of the cost is paid by federal money. That is money that is still tax money but isn't raised by local tax increases here.
Stores like Lebo's see themselves as the victims of redevelopment. Under law, they cannot even be guaranteed to return to renewal land. They must bid with others on the property. Renewal authorities do offer considerable help to displaced merchants. Moving costs, small business loans, expert advice. But all of this does not erase the specter of an uncertain future from the businessman's mind. In a moment, we'll visit a city that is turning that future into a present, and a merchant that looks back at it all. Told us that renewal is indeed paying off. 3 of the project's new buildings alone now pay more city taxes than did the whole area before.
We have already realized more in the way of private investment in any section of this area than we had anticipated. We didn't anticipate a 24-story office building or even a 19-story office building. We anticipated 4 buildings of perhaps 12 or 14 stories in height, maybe only 10 stories, 1 or 2 of them. So that we're getting in our financial district expansion, which you're sitting in now, we're getting almost twice the gross amount of office space that we dared plan for when we conceived the project.
Merchant Bertram Myers owned a clothing store within the Norfolk renewal area. He recalls how he felt about displacement.
The tremendous uncertainty that I was being faced with was horrible. Everything that I owned was in my business. I'd worked for 12 years and been relatively successful, and all of a sudden I was being faced without even having a roof over my head.
But Myers banded together with other displaced merchants to build a downtown shopping center on renewal property. Now, he says, the change was beneficial.
We have, in 3 years, shown approximately an increase in our business of 20 to 25% in the gross sales. We have a real future in our business now, but we didn't have a future. It was a question of diminishing returns setting in because we were in an old, antiquated area that was lacking in the facilities to compete with the outlying suburban areas.
Myers says success wasn't automatic, but now he's convinced.
There's no substitute for hard work, and it's not easy, but it's a real challenge, it's real interesting, and as far as I was concerned, it's the greatest thing that's ever happened to me.
A few hundred miles to the southwest, Atlanta, giant of the region, is embarked on a mammoth downtown renewal project. The effort has added over 2 million square feet of office space to the downtown area in 3 years, while suburban areas prospered even more, with 8 million square feet in the same period.
These investments are generating new investments as time has gone on. This is so unmistakably clear that you can almost document now from here on out how many new buildings you think the existing complex will generate. And you could never have seen this in a study in the earlier days. In other words, you're creating new demands for new private investments by virtue of a very substantial change in the whole physical environment of downtown Atlanta. Precisely the process that has already begun in Charlotte, but you have a long way yet to go.
Charlotte and Atlanta. Philip Hammer sees both cities moving to new roles and says Charlotte may benefit from Atlanta's growth.
Atlanta is already moving from what in effect is a regional city into what you might call a national city, which means that it can offer the same things as Cleveland and Denver and Chicago, even the big ones, for national firms, as in effect a location for national types of economic activity. And with this comes big league ball and big league everything. Now Charlotte, I think, will, as time goes on, take over many of the regional functions that Atlanta has. And it's possible, as we look far enough off in the future, that Charlotte also will emerge as a national city. And I think this is very possible. I'm looking now, 50 years off. It will also become a big national city. There won't be too many of them in the southeast.
A goal for Charlotte, but one which planners say the city must reach for to attain.
If Charlotte does not move, it will lose its position of predominance in this region. Other cities have found this out, and they have found that it takes major surgery to do something about it. Whether it's Hartford, Connecticut, a city smaller than Charlotte, or Nashville, Tennessee, Baltimore, Philadelphia, or Boston. There's only one answer. That is a master plan of development backed up by the federal redevelopment program in order to spark by a certain amount of public investment, subsequent investment by private capital, which will be 10 times as great as that which we put in through our city or county government.
It boils down then to a decision for Charlotte, one which planners say is vital to the city, to the region. Opponents say there is another way, but both agree that the bond vote December 17th, of which the master plan developments are only a part, may well be a turning point, may well hold the key to the future. This is Ken Alvord, WBTV News. Good night.